A part of me only wants to make this video so that I can get this picture out of my phone. If you get scared easily, maybe come back and watch this in the morning. This is your warning. This lady says that it is very known that in her house they have this woman ghost. So there was one night where they had a party. Everybody was super drunk and somebody took a picture. In this picture, right smack in the middle of everybody partying and dancing and having fun, there is a face of a lady and her eyes are just glowing. They went around to their friends asking who this woman was because nobody recognized her, nobody remembered her being at that party, and of course nobody said that they remember seeing this woman there. So this is the picture. Again, everybody's drunk, everyone looks like they're having so much fun. Let's just zoom in a little bit. What the fuck? What are you looking at me for? I don't know. You just look at the picture. What? You wanted it to zoom in all the way? Oh my god. I don't know what it is about this picture. I'm looking at myself. I'm not looking up there. I'm not. This is creepy as fuck. You cannot tell me that's not creepy. I think the worst part about it is that no one is acknowledging her. Look at everybody around. Everyone is acknowledging one person. They all seem like the type of people who are like conversing with their friends, looking at something. Why is she just, or whoever that is, just there? And why does it look like that? Sorry, fuck. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
When I was 15, I was possessed. This is Georgia's submission to Spooky Scary Storytime, and she said she's sharing this because normally when you hear a story about exorcisms or possession, you hear it from the witness perspective, but she believes that when she was 15, she was actually possessed and she underwent an exorcism. And she's from Romania, and the other story that I've shared on this channel about an exorcism was from Romania as well, so I think that's interesting. She said this took a lot of courage to write, but she wanted to give a little bit of context as to how this can actually happen. And in this particular part of Romania, there are rituals that can be performed in order to curse someone or to even them. And these are normally performed by what she considers the witches of the area. Georgia's paternal grandmother was very against her parents' marriage and their plans. And Georgia's mother got pregnant when Georgia's mother and father were only dating. And Georgia remembers growing up and her mother telling her how unhappy that her grandmother was about her birth. She just believed that it was the wrong order and that a child born without married parents was the wrong way to go about things. So anyway, time passes and Georgia found herself getting to her mid-teenage years, and she found herself passing out or feeling faint anytime she entered a church or monastery. There was no real reason for this, but she can't even begin to tell you how many times she passed out in a church. And it was seemingly isolated to only when she entered these religious spaces. And when she was 15, she found herself at her paternal grandmother's house, and they were just in conversation, and Georgia happened to mention to her that she needed a new watch because the watch that she wore every day broke, and her paternal grandmother says, "Oh, I have a watch for you." And she seemed almost too excited to gift her a gold watch that she said that she had had since she was young. She said, "I never wear it. This will be perfect for you." And Georgia took the watch, and she said she was actually surprised that she just gave it to her because it was beautiful and elegant, and she was happy to have it. And so she immediately put it on. The second she put it on, she says she felt very overwhelmed and lightheaded and just sort of sick to her stomach. And it was sort of the same feeling that she felt anytime she entered a church or monastery. But of course she didn't want to offend her grandmother, and so she just quietly took it off and didn't say anything about it. But when she took the watch off, she felt immediately better. It was just a very strange sensation. And so when she got home, she put the watch on her desk and she just sort of forgot about it. But from that point on, she said she just had this overwhelming feeling of feeling sad, and she was also sick all the time, and she couldn't sleep, and she was suffering from insomnia. She was getting dizzy spells, and she thought that something was wrong with her from a physical standpoint. And so one day she gets home from school and she finds that all of the religious icons in her room are broken or burned into the walls. She had no explanation for this, and her mom was religious, and so she tells her, and her mom is like, "We don't play about these things." She said that in Romania these things are taken very seriously, and so her mom immediately called a priest. The priest comes over and he does what they call an investigation prayer, and she said this is where he is able to use the gift of discernment and see who is behind these problems and what exactly is causing it. Going into this, Georgia says she just thought that he was going to come over, say some prayers, and that was going to be the end of it. But spoiler, that was not the end of it. And he actually instructed her to kneel down, and he started praying over both Georgia and her mother. Strangely enough, from there, she says she absolutely blacked out and does not remember a thing. But when she came to, she was told that she was shaking, that she began to cry hysterically, and that she seemed to be trying to scream but couldn't. Her mother said that she was absolutely panicked, and Georgia was drooling and she couldn't close her mouth. And after it was all over, the priest put the sign of the cross on Georgia's head, and she fell asleep for a full hour. And when she woke up, she changed into some clean clothes, and the priest was still over, and so she went to meet up with him and her mother. And I should mention, she said that they hadn't told the priest anything about the burned religious icons in her room, or the broken items, or the watch. And the priest said, "You carried your curse with dignity for your entire life." And asked what he meant, he said, "The curse was done on an unborn child, and you should burn the watch." He said, "Burn those clothes as well." And she said she was stunned, but she asked what clothes. She said he instructed her to find all of the clothes from her childhood that had all of their left pockets cut. He tells her, "You should have had breast cancer because of those." She said that was the moment that her body went cold. She had a pile of clothes that she had often worn to her grandmother's countryside house growing up. One of her cousins had gone through the pile of clothes, apparently because some of them belonged to her, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer not 2 months later. Of course, nobody thought this was related. The priest left, and both Georgia and her mother decided to go to the grandmother's house to investigate. And so they got over there and they started going through this sack with all of these clothes. They put the clothes into two categories, Georgia's and her cousin's. Georgia said that all of her clothes had the left pockets and some sleeves cut, but her cousin's didn't. I don't know if she is inferring that the cousin just happened to touch the clothes and was affected by this curse, or if she means that the cousin may have taken some of her clothes on accident. She says her cousin is better now after some difficult prayer sessions and cancer treatment. She says she believes her grandmother got her own karma, as she now suffers from a plethora of health conditions. She also said that she still keeps in touch with the priest, and he told her that God doesn't have debt to anyone. That makes her believe that all of the grandmother's curses have now backfired. I always think the stories from Romania are especially interesting, but let me know what you think, whether you think this was coincidence or something more sinister, or just her real name. She may be in the comments, I'm not sure. She didn't give me a tag to tag her directly, but if you have a spooky scary story time you think no one would believe, please send it in. We would love to hear it, especially if it's from another culture. Just something strange and unsettling that you want to get off your chest. We're here for it.
This story is about a man that ended up summoning a jinn and now has absolutely no idea how to get rid of it. One of you guys sent me this story. You said I can use your actual name, so we're going to call you Omar. A few months back, Omar was up late one night just kind of scrolling through TikTok when he came across this video that said that there was a specific chant that you can say in order to summon a jinn. He said it was some sort of like incantations, ritual type of thing. Without even realizing it, he started saying this thing out loud. After about the third time of saying it, absolutely nothing happened, so he decided that to just kind of move on. That night, after he went to sleep, he got woken up by a very loud, sharp scream coming from his left ear. He kind of jumped up, looked around the room, didn't really see anything, and decided to just go back to sleep. Now, the second time that he tried to go to bed, he got woken up by what sounded like a laughter coming from a woman. The laugh almost sounded like a mocking type of laugh, like he was being made fun of. He once again looked around the room and couldn't see where it was coming from. Tried to shake it off, thinking that maybe he was just hearing things because he had gotten it in his head that he may hear something. The next morning, everything was fine, but the next couple of days, he felt like something was following him. Like something around him just felt dark. He continued to have these crazy nightmares of him just being in this dark room, surrounded by this like hallway, where at the end of this hallway, he would hear that same mocking laugh. Finally, Omar decided to call one of his uncles who was very familiar with like jinns and how to get rid of them. And his uncle advised him to cleanse himself. He recommended that he do a ritual bath and say this prayer. I'll put it right here. Omar went ahead and did just that. He also had like incense burning. He was praying, like trying to get whatever this thing was off of him. That seemed to work for a little bit, and things did calm down until last night. Omar said he woke up at exactly 3 a.m. to that same laughter that he was hearing before of the woman mocking him. Omar does plan on contacting his uncle once again, and I think they're gonna seek like even more professional type help. But it's just crazy to think that something as simple as like a little TikTok video of him just chanting something blindly could have such like permanent consequences. Have you guys ever been in contact with a jinn? Have any suggestions for him to read? Because he'll be watching this video. You can definitely comment down below.
This is the night that this paramedic will never forget, and that is because he had to assist a possessed nun. So this happened in La Cruz Roja, the Red Cross, in Saltillo, Coahuila. I hate when I hear places that I've been to because I don't want to be at places where this shit has happened at. So of course this story does have to do with a nun, but it starts off with this guy who is from Veracruz, but he moves to Saltillo, Coahuila to be a paramedic. One of his cousins also moved there with him, who's also a paramedic. They both work at the Red Cross, and basically all they do is deal with emergencies. So this guy says that this happened around 2007, 2008. He remembers the night because they received an urgent phone call. His coworkers went to the urgency and he stayed behind by himself. He explains that minutes passed and they returned, and on the stretcher was this girl that looked like she was maybe 20 years old. This girl was accompanied by a nun and a priest, and she was coming from a convent, and he knows which one, but he doesn't want to say the name. He doesn't want people to think it's a joke or have them go there and do weird stuff. Now, he wasn't the one who put them in a room or anything like that. He just saw when they passed by, he thought, hey, that was a weird scenario, and the only things that he saw was whatever was being written down on her documents. Basically, they sedated her and they needed her to relax and calm down. Now, he explains that because the entire scene that he saw was so weird, he got a little bit curious and he got really nosy, so he made sure to get really close to the door so that he can hear what was happening. So he says that he got close to the door of that room and he overheard that the nun that was with the girl was actually the Mother Superior, and she was explaining to the doctors who were taking down notes that this girl was having like epilepsy episodes. They were also telling the doctors how this girl was acting very aggressive and very violent. After being sedated, this girl slept for a really long time. He remembers how this girl slept the entire night and the entire next day. Now that in itself wasn't weird. Obviously they sedated her, so she slept the entire night, the entire next day, and that is when he realized on the following day that nuns were in and out of that room. Like, this girl never stayed alone, and the times that he would go close to the room, the nuns that were in there with her were praying the entire time. Basically, all of these nuns were like tag teaming each other into that room and praying over this girl. He knows that they are nuns. He knows that nuns pray, but he's like, what do they think is happening? Because to him, he's like, well, this is something medical. They're saying that she has epilepsy. They're saying that she's acting aggressively. Why are they praying like this and excessive? He knows that they did studies on that girl and they're just waiting for them to come back, but he was just curious as to like what led for them to bring her there. Why are they praying over her? He just thought the entire thing was weird, because if anything, if they just thought she needed prayer, why would they bring her to the emergency room? He says that everything changed that day. He explains that around 11 p.m., this girl had been sleeping for almost 2 days and the show started. Things got fucking crazy. He explains how this girl, 20-year-old, when she finally wakes up, she wakes up with a fury that they had never seen before. She had an IV like in her arm. She pulls that thing off of her. When this girl woke up, the nun that had been in the room with her, she takes the rosary off herself, she puts it on the girl, and she just starts praying over her. Now the guy, the paramedic telling us the story, says that this all happened so fast. Like, he had just walked into the room and he's like, we're not at a church. Like, I'm watching a scary movie and this is all happening at the Red Cross. This girl is angry. She rips this thing off. The nun takes the rosary off for her, puts it on the girl, and he has to react as a paramedic. Even though he's looking at something that he is like, what the fuck is happening? He decides that he wants to touch her head to see if she's hot. He gets close to her. He puts his hand on her, her forehead, and he says that she is like burning hot. Now, as he has his hands on her forehead checking the temperature, because he wanted to check it with the equipment, but he just wanted to check her really quickly first, right? So he puts his hands there. He says that girl grabs his hand, all 4 fingers, and she squeezes them so tight that he feels like she's about to break them. Now, he is in shock at the strength that this girl is like about to break his finger, so he pulls back and he falls all the way down to the ground, and that is when he looks at the nun. So as he's looking at the nun, he's like, what the fuck is happening? The nun is looking right at him and she says, do you know how to pray? And he just nods yes, and she's like, it's time for you to pray. I swear that if somebody needed me to pray in a moment like this, I would not remember anything. There's no way I would remember any prayer. Not even a song. Actually, one song. La Guadalupan. What the fuck? Bitch, is that gonna work? Would that be helpful? I would not remember any prayer. I'd be crying and being like, you pray for me. Like, what the hell? Now he's on the ground like, pray. I need to start praying. And lucky for him, in that moment, the priest actually walks into the room. He exits the room and he says that he doesn't know why or how or who let them, but that same night, that girl was taken back to the convent. Now again, he's nosy, and thankfully for us, he was. He says that there wasn't like a conclusion. There wasn't like a specific disease or like something that was wrong with her for them to treat. He has no idea who decided that she could leave. Like, was she okay? What did she have is what he was thinking that entire time. The only thing that stayed registered on that chart was that she was normal, she was fine. Out of nowhere, she would have epilepsy episodes. He has no idea what happened to her, but what he does know is that, you know, the studies that they did on her, that shit came back and they found out that 20-year-old was pregnant. Now, the thing with him was like, fine, she's a nun, she ended up pregnant. We've heard of shit like that before. This isn't like the most shocking news. He was like, her being pregnant wouldn't make her act the way she's acting. Because she's pregnant, that doesn't mean that she would act this way, or she should be acting this way. Like, obviously something else was wrong with this girl. And he didn't even tell us like everything that happened. He told us the last thing that happened to him. He says that he's a skeptic. If you lived in a room with somebody like this, her voice wasn't a voice of a 20-year-old. It was so raspy. It sounded like an old lady. She would spit at you. She would say all these bad words, and in front of like the nun and the priest, like there was something wrong with her that this hospital could not help her with. He's like, if you're a skeptic and you were in that room, you would leave a believer. Like, you would think that this lady was definitely possessed. Seeing it in a movie and seeing it happen in front of your eyes are completely different things. Imagine you're in the room, this shit is happening, this nun is looking at you and saying you better pray. You're gonna want to pray. You're gonna want to know how to pray. Like, he's like, you have no other choice than to start praying. He explains that he still works there at the same place, and that after that incident is when they put these crucifixes in every single one of the rooms in that Red Cross. They even put an altar of the Virgin Mary in like the hallway of that hospital. I'm gonna need him to be just a little bit more nosy and see if that girl's okay. You know what I mean? Like, you don't gotta go look for her. Maybe look into her, see if she's fine, see if the baby's fine. Like, wouldn't she have... I'm thinking too much about it. No, I don't even want to know. Why do I want to know? I need to stop being a nosy ass bitch. I was about to say, like, you work at the hospital, couldn't you check if she had a baby? But then again, like, a lot of people in Mexico have babies at their houses too, especially if you're at a church trying to hide a pregnancy. Maybe you would have the baby at the church, but shouldn't there be a register of that? Maybe not. Oh my god, I'm thinking too much. Somebody help. Somebody give me answers. What do you guys think? Yeah, let me know what you guys think.
I woke up at 3 in the morning because my college roommate was whispering under my bed. This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about when I realized that there was something seriously wrong with the girl I was living with. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The whispering was so fast I couldn't make out a single word. And then I heard her say my name. I completely froze. My roommate's bedroom was across the hall. There was absolutely no reason for her to be underneath my bed. I was too scared to move, so I closed my eyes and pretended I was still asleep. The whispering continued for another minute, and then it stopped. I felt the mattress shift underneath me, and then slowly she crawled out. I could hear her hands moving across the carpet, and then she stood beside my bed. She stayed there for what felt like forever. I kept my breathing slow and didn't open my eyes. Eventually, she walked out of my room and quietly closed the door. A few seconds later, I heard her bedroom door close across the hall. I didn't sleep again that night. She had already been acting strange for a couple of weeks, and she barely talked to me anymore. She kept her bedroom locked whenever she left, and sometimes I would catch her staring at me from across the apartment. And instead of looking away, she would just keep staring. But until that night, I never felt afraid of her. The next morning, I casually asked if she had come into my room, and she looked at me like I was crazy. No, why? I told her I thought I heard something during the night, and she smiled and said, "You probably dreamed it." I almost convinced myself she was right, and then it happened again 3 nights later. I woke up to the same rapid whispering underneath my bed, and this time I stayed completely still and listened. Most of it was impossible to understand, and then I heard her clearly say, "She still doesn't know." I felt sick. The whispering stopped, and she crawled out again. This time before leaving, she leaned over me. Her face was close enough that I could feel her breathing against my cheek, and then she whispered, soon. She left the room, and the next morning I packed a bag and started staying with friends whenever I could. A few days later, my roommate was at work, and I decided I needed to know what was going on. I went into her bedroom, and everything looked normal. And then I noticed her closet door was slightly open. Inside, she had built something on the floor. Black candles burned almost completely down. Strange symbols covered sheets of paper, and there were bundles of hair tied together with string and photographs with faces scratched out. I didn't know what any of it meant, and then I saw pictures of me sleeping. There were several. Most had been taken from underneath my bed, and on the back of one she had written, "She thinks I'm talking to myself." I dropped it and I grabbed my purse and drove straight to my parents' house. I never slept in that apartment again. I broke my side of the lease and came back a week later with my dad to get everything I owned. My roommate's bedroom was empty, no candles or photographs, and nothing in the closet. She already had moved out too. I never saw her again. I still don't know who she was whispering to underneath my bed, and I really don't want to. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
And this is why I always try to be a good person, because you never know when your bad decisions will come back to haunt you. So there's this girl. Let's call her Honesty. She says when she was younger, between 5 and 8, one of her distant relatives that everybody in the family loved had passed away. She said one of his last wishes was that his final celebration be at his childhood home. This family member had a son named DJ. So DJ decided to respect those wishes, and he contacted the current homeowner to ask if they could have the event at the premises outside. If like, excuse me, I'm thinking maybe the house is like in the family or something, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe a cousin or somebody owned the house, and if it was me, y'all want to do what now? At my house? Now look, I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't know about that. I hear what you're saying. I hear, but that just sounds like a lot. But apparently the homeowner was super kind and understanding and agreed that they could have it there and even offered to help out. He just had like certain boundaries set into place or whatever. Wow, what a nice guy. Not only are you letting them have a celebration of life on your property, you're gonna help out. If I did say yes, I know y'all better have them tents taken down by 8 p.m. This ain't no goddamn circus. So now it's the day of the event, and the family is all arriving around 3 p.m. Honesty says she has this really weird feeling in the pit of her stomach. She says she has a lot of anxiety and she just can't shake it. She said something to her mom about it because she was like, she remembered watching on TV about trusting her gut. So she wanted to let her mom know that she was having this feeling in her stomach. But of course, her parents shrug off and they're like, this celebration of life, maybe you're just nervous about seeing everybody. I don't know. Anyways, let's get out of the car. So Honesty is like, all right, cool. I trust my parents. And she gets out of the car. Honesty says she's wearing a super cute dress and a bunch of cheap plastic Mardi Gras beads. What kind of celebration is this? But no, she's a kid at the time, so she definitely probably thought she was doing her big one. I remember when I was younger, I used to wear my knee-high Chucks everywhere. I just felt like a rebel. I remember wearing them to a formal dinner, and everybody was looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so cool. All the time looking like a dumbass. Anyways, Honesty, her dad, and her mom all start walking towards the backyard. They're headed towards the right side of the house because they can't go through the house because the inside of the house was considered off limits due to it being a private property. All of a sudden, the homeowner busts out of the front door holding a bat. And she said this isn't no like regular bat for the kids to play with. Like he busts out of the door holding this bat, screaming at everybody. He's screaming how the entire family is horrible and disgusting. And he is holding this baseball bat that is full of nails. Like he busts out of the door holding this bat, screaming at everybody. He's screaming how the entire family is horrible and disgusting. And he is holding this baseball bat that is full of nails. Nobody got that thing on him? You get any closer to me with that bat and we're gonna be celebrating 2 lives out of this motherfucker. So Honesty goes straight into fight or flight with flight taking over. She runs back to the car, jumps in, shuts her door, and she says she's looking out the window with teary eyes and upset stomach when the man runs up to the car. She said he had chased her to the car. He took the bat and then hit the area above the back tire, which led to like a loud ringing and a dent in the back of the car. She said her dad runs up, pushes the man down, jumps in the car, and her mom does the same. RKO that nigga. What are we doing? You need more than a push. Okay. He does have a bat with nails. I digress. As they're speeding away from the house, Honesty's parents were telling her how proud of her they were for running. And also that if she ever had a gut feeling again, they would absolutely listen to her. Honesty said after that event, her family never discussed it again with her. However, she said years later, she ended up asking her mom about it. She said that the man ended up Googling the son, DJ, and found his estranged brother's criminal record. Apparently, whatever he saw in the record motivated him enough to attack the family. I want to know what was in that goddamn record. I didn't mention that. Because for him to come out and scream, y'all are horrible people, y'all are horrible, disgusting family, and then come out the house with a bat full of nails after already agreeing to let y'all have the celebration of life on the property. What was in that record? It had to be abhorrent. It had to be. I'm not saying he's right for doing what he did, like chasing a little girl is crazy, but I want to know what's in that record. Y'all stay safe out there.
I'm writing the story while it's still fresh in my head. My girlfriend Katie and I just got back from what was supposed to be a multiple-day hiking trip. The reason I'm writing this down is that I'm not exactly sure what happened to us. The more I think about it, the more I start to spiral down a rabbit hole of insane thoughts. 3 days ago, we started this long, planned-out hike in the mountains of upstate New York. If anyone's familiar with that area, they'll know just how beautiful it is. When people outside of New York State think about New York, they tend to only think about the city, but there's so much more to this state. I would argue that the nature here in New York is vastly underrated. Our planned trip was supposed to last 4 days and 3 nights, a chance to get off the grid and just be alone with each other and nature. We love to hike and be outdoors. We've hiked forests and mountains all over the country, so this trip wasn't anything out of the ordinary. The first day went smoothly. Other than some patches of rain, we didn't have any other issues. We set up a tent, ate some food, and turned in for bed so we could get an early start on our hike tomorrow morning. During the night, I woke up and noticed that Katie was sitting up. She looked scared, which is out of character for her. I asked her if she was okay, and she sort of tripped over her words at first. Eventually, she got the words out. She told me that she heard something outside the tent, something that freaked her out. Initially, I thought it could have been an animal like a deer because they're everywhere up here, but that wouldn't have caused her to be as freaked out as she was. I told her I'd take a look, and as I reached for the zipper inside the tent, she gasped and grabbed my hand. She begged me not to open it. I still had my hand on the zipper, looking at Katie, trying to figure out what could have scared her this much. My thought at the time was that she might have had a bad dream and was still in that half-dream state. While I was contemplating what to do next, I watched Katie freeze. This time, I heard it as well. Outside the tent, I swear I could hear someone walking around. We both sat quietly and listened to the footsteps walking around outside. The way the footsteps sounded, it was clearly not an animal. Whoever was outside just kept walking around the tent. Every couple of minutes, the person would giggle. She had a high-pitched laugh. Neither one of us had any idea what to do. It may have been stupid, but we decided our best course of action was just to stay put until dawn and hope that whoever was outside the tent was gone. I'm not sure exactly how long she was outside the tent, but eventually, the sound of her walking around stopped. For a few hours, we heard nothing except the quiet forest. Usually, this sound is our favorite thing in the world, but on that night, the quiet forest had us on edge. At dawn, I slowly left the tent. Thankfully, we were alone. I felt relief for about 5 seconds. As soon as I fully left the tent, I noticed that there were strange rocks all over our little campsite. Rocks I know were not there the night before. These rocks were also stacked and arranged strangely. Katie was ready to pack up and go home, but the idiot that I am convinced her to keep going ahead with our planned hike. The events of the previous night were horrible, but I was confident that it had to be someone messing with us. I couldn't come up with any other rational explanation. The entire day, Katie kept looking over her shoulder. She was convinced we were being followed. Every time I would stop and look around, I wouldn't see anything. We only hiked for half the day. Katie was all done, and I didn't blame her. We set up our campsite and got ready for the evening. Katie begged me to head back tomorrow. If we left at dawn and basically jogged, we could most likely cover all the ground from the last day and a half. The whole point of these hikes is to enjoy them, and she was not enjoying herself. That night, I was sure she wasn't going to be able to sleep. I was wrong. She must have been exhausted. She passed out as soon as her head hit the pillow. It took me a while, but I finally started to get sleepy. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I could hear someone whisper, It jolted me awake. I looked next to me in the tent to see if Katie was awake. I thought that maybe she whispered something to me, but she was still out like a light. Then I heard the whisper again. It was a soft female voice, and she said, "Come outside, Artie." I couldn't believe I just heard my name. Then a different woman's voice said, "Yeah, Artie, please come outside, we're waiting." I didn't react. I didn't do anything except sit completely still. Katie was still asleep, and I didn't know if I should wake her up and cause a panic, or just ignore this like the previous night. They didn't whisper anymore, but I could hear them running around the tent. It wasn't like the previous night when they were walking. They were for sure running now. To make things worse, while they were running, they started to laugh uncontrollably. These high-pitched laughs were the worst thing I've ever heard. It was like they were cackling. During the laughing, one of the voices got much deeper and louder, and she shouted, "Come outside now." With the loud voices and all the activity outside the tent, Katie was now awake. She instantly panicked and wanted to know what was going on. I can't imagine how disoriented she must have been waking up to screaming and laughing outside the tent. I didn't even have a few seconds to explain to her what was going on, because these women outside started messing with the tent, almost like they kept leaning into the sides of it. Then they would try pulling the tent, and somehow they'd actually move us a little bit. During all this chaos, the women outside continued to laugh. I have to admit, I had no idea what to do. This was way beyond anything I'd ever dealt with. I was scared, and I could tell Katie was horrified. Then, in an instant, we heard several footsteps running away. I could hear the footsteps running further into the woods. It was quiet again. For 30 minutes, Katie and I just stared at each other. We didn't say one word. Neither one of us had any idea what just happened, or how to deal with it. After the 30 minutes had passed with no other sounds, I decided I was going to unzip the tent a little bit and just see if we were alone. I slowly unzipped the tent while Katie squeezed the life out of my arm. Standing about 20 feet from the tent was an image that will be burned into my head for my entire life. It was a young woman who looked like she was in her 20s. She was staring right at me, smiling, almost like she was waiting for me to unzip the tent. She had a white dress on, which is crazy because we were in the woods in the middle of the night. She waved at me. I zipped the tent up and sat there speechless. Katie looked over my shoulder when I had the tent unzipped, and she saw the woman as well. Her reaction was the same as mine. For the rest of the night, we sat and held each other. At any moment, we expected that woman to charge the tent. However, nothing happened. At dawn, I slowly unzipped the tent again. She wasn't there anymore. Just like the previous morning, there were rocks scattered all across the camp in strange formations. There were also sticks tied together that made weird symbols. Symbols I didn't recognize, and neither did Kate. Trust me, I know how this sounds, and I can't believe it either. It sounds like something out of a nightmare. We packed up our stuff, made sure to leave all the rocks and sticks there, and we darted out of those woods. We nearly sprinted instead of jogging. It took less than a day for us to make it back to our car. We drove back to our apartment practically in silence. I told her that as soon as I get home, I'm writing the story and sharing it. As much as we love the woods, I'm in no hurry to go back, especially not those woods. I guess the logical answer still is that someone was just messing with us. I don't know why anyone would go through that much effort for a joke. It seems insane. Any other conclusion I come to makes me question everything I know. This felt sinister. I mean, how the hell did she know my name? I hope we can move past this. It makes me think maybe monsters really do exist.
My name is Lehua. I've been watching your videos and I decided to share my encounters. I'm 22 years old and I'm from Oahu, Hawaii. My whole life, since I can remember, I've had nothing but encounters. But the one I want to share happened when I was living on the west side of Oahu. My parents, 2 brothers, and I moved into a house on farmland with a pig farm right next to our lot. At the time, I was 16 and in a relationship with my oldest son's father. Our relationship was super toxic, which caused me to build up a lot of negative emotions that I didn't know at the time would be the start of everything. Whenever he came to visit, he would stand by my window and call my name so I could let him inside. After a while, my mom told me she didn't like him and that he needed to stop coming to my window to call for me. Later, my mom and I got into a huge argument. She made me so mad that I stayed in my room for 3 days. I didn't eat, drink, or even use the bathroom. All I did was think the most vile, evil thoughts, like how I wanted my mom dead. The whole time, she didn't check up on me and went out with my auntie and my siblings, which made me even more mad. Each day that passed, I was accumulating so much negative energy that I didn't realize what was happening behind the scenes. On the 3rd day, I decided to take a full body mirror picture for Instagram. I didn't post it, but a few hours later, I had a gut feeling to check it. I didn't know why, but when I did, my heart dropped. I zoomed in on the picture. Behind me, in my closet, it looked like a shinigami with long horns that reached the top of my closet. Its jaw was stretched all the way to the floor while it looked at me. I decided to brush it off though. That was the worst mistake I ever made. That same night, my auntie slept with me, and I had all the lights off. Because of trauma from past encounters, I never sleep with the lights off, even to this day. But since my auntie was there, I felt safe. That night, I had a nightmare. I didn't think much of it because I've had nightmares my whole life. I thought it was just another regular dream. Until morning came. I woke up to sunlight shining into my room. I decided to stare out the window for a little when I noticed footprints on my ceiling. I waited until my auntie left my room to see if I was imagining things. I wasn't. There were footprints that led from the top of my closet all around my room to right above where I had been sleeping. It looked like something had been crawling, walking upside down on my ceiling from my closet to above my bed. I grabbed a stool and tried to wipe them off. They never came off. I kept it a secret because I was so scared. Fast forward again. My oldest son's father came back around. I was so scared. Fast forward again. My oldest son's father came back around. And so did the arguments and negative energy. After things settled, he decided to sleep over. By then, I had rearranged my room. My bed was in the corner, and my dresser with my TV was right at the foot of my bed. One night, we watched a horror movie and fell asleep afterward. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to what felt like a hand between the dresser and the bed, trying to pull my feet. I'm a very light sleeper, so I was fully awake while it was trying to wedge whatever it was, maybe a hand between the bed and dresser. I froze. When it reached for my toes, I jumped up, heart racing, trying to wake him up. I told him what happened, and he brushed me off like I was crazy. I turned the TV to cartoons to lighten the mood before falling back asleep. The next morning, my mom and family left, and it was just me and him home alone. He went to use the bathroom, leaving me in the room by myself. I was scrolling through Instagram when suddenly the corner of my bed lifted about 2 feet into the air, like something grabbed it, lifted it quickly, and dropped it. I screamed and ran to the bathroom where he was, crying and telling him what happened. He still didn't believe me. That night, he pulled the bed into the living room to see if it would happen again. It did. Something followed me into the living room and tried to pull my feet again. I cried. I felt angry for being picked on by this entity, but I was also terrified and didn't know what to do. A few days later, we argued again, and he left. I moved my bed back into my room. That same night, around 11 p.m. or midnight, I was watching a movie. Not a scary one anymore, even though I loved horror movies. Then I heard his voice, or what I thought was his voice. It called my name from the window. the same way he always did when he wanted me to let him inside. Deep down, I knew it wasn't him, but I also felt pulled to open the window and look. I regret it to this day. I opened the window, but no one was there. I closed it and tried to sleep, but then I heard what sounded like the ice cream truck music playing outside. It bothered me so much that I couldn't sleep. I moved my bed into the living room again. The sound followed me. This time it was louder and right outside the living room window. I was so scared. I prayed to God to make it stop. It didn't. It continued for 2 nights before it finally stopped. That's when I told my mom everything. Even though we still hadn't fully made up, she listened. She called my cousin who believes in God like she does. She made me and my brothers leave the house while she prayed and battled whatever it was attacking me. Before I left, I cried and told her, "Mom, please don't die." She had tears in her eyes and said, "I will not. I rebuke whatever evil is clouding your mind to think it's stronger than a God-fearing woman." She hugged me, and my brothers and I left. About 15-20 minutes later, she called and told us to come back. She said the entity felt heavy and evil. She told me that while she was praying, the Monster energy drink cans on top of my closet kept popping, like when you press in the aluminum and it pops back out. I told her none of the cans were indented. They were all normal. She said the more she prayed, the louder they popped, like it was trying to distract her and make her stop. She bagged all the Monster cans and told me to throw them away. After that, I never drank Monster again or watched horror movies. It's 2026 now. I am no longer with my oldest son's father, but what happened still haunts me in ways I can't explain. I still don't sleep with all the lights off, and I always cover my feet, even at my grown age. If I could send a message to anyone listening, it would be this: be careful with horror movies and don't stay in situations that fill you with negativity. I truly believe demons are real and they feed on that energy.
This is why you should never go to sleep in front of a mirror. Sometimes when I go to the restroom, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, ugh. But like, imagine if my reflection didn't do that. Bitch, I would die on the spot. Why the fuck do I play around like that if I know that I would die of a heart attack? So this guy said that this happened to him 4 years ago and he will never forget that night. He explains that in his household, they like to sleep in complete darkness. They don't like to have like night lights or anything that gives off any kind of light because then they can't fall asleep. Now on this particular night, he explains that they all slept in the same bedroom because the mom was working. So in one bed, it was him and his brother, and on the other bed was his dad and the little sister. The beds were right next to each other, and on this end was a full body mirror. He explains that they had all gone to sleep, and for whatever reason, he gets jolted awake, like wide awake, like sits up, and he is looking around the room. Obviously, it is really dark, so the moonlight was barely coming into the bedroom. He looks at the bed where his dad and sister is, and he clearly sees where somebody is sitting down right next to where his dad was. Because he had just been asleep, he wasn't scared. He just thought it was weird that his brother was sitting right next to his dad. That's when he started to talk to his brother. Kevin, why are you awake? What are you doing? That was the moment where he felt like the ugliest thing ever, because he was about to remove the blanket off himself to like go and see what Kevin's doing. And when he does that, he feels Kevin in the bed with him, next to him asleep. He's like, I still remember that feeling that I got in the pit of my stomach where like I removed the blanket accidentally touching my brother, but I'm staring at this person sitting next to my dad, who I thought was my brother. In that moment, he stayed in shock. He stayed still. He got goosebumps all over his body. And the only thing he could do was like stare at whoever that was sitting next to his dad. He couldn't make out what they were wearing. He couldn't make out a face. All he could see was a silhouette of somebody sitting on that bed. This is when he decides that he is about to turn the freaking flashlight on his phone on and see who the fuck this is. So he grabs his phone and he's about to turn on that flashlight, and that is when he sees that silhouette move. But that's not even the scariest part, because he's still trying to turn on the flashlight to like at least see what the fuck that is. But he sees when the silhouette, it doesn't look like they walked. It just moved across the room and went inside of the mirror. I will not be playing around with the mirrors anymore. I would not be like, ooh, no thanks. He remembers the movement that it made. He said it was a full body shadow, fully walking into this mirror and just like disappearing. He turns on the light in that bedroom completely. He sees that his brother is asleep next to him. He sees that his dad is snoring away. His sister is asleep too, covered with the blanket. They were all accounted for. He could not sleep that night. He said that he stayed there staring at the mirror until daylight came. Now, he said that he didn't tell anybody in his family what happened. He didn't tell a soul, and he said that it's because in his household, nobody believes in the paranormal. He knows that they would have told him that maybe he was dreaming or maybe he was confused because it was so dark in the bedroom, which honestly, you know, it could have been, but he said that he knows what he saw wasn't made up. He was fully awake. Until this day, he refuses to look into a mirror if he wakes up randomly in the middle of the night. I'm surprised he hasn't moved that mirror out of the bedroom at the very least. I mean, you ain't gotta tell nobody. You just gotta, hey, it looks better over here. Like, fuck that. But what do you guys think?
Get ready with me while I tell you this ghost story. We're not going to talk about the hairpins, okay? We will only talk about the hairpins. If at the end my hair turns out right, it'll be great. We can talk about it. If not, it never happened. Back when I was in grade 8 and 9, I became completely obsessed with the paranormal. Ghosts, spirits, anything forbidden, I wanted all of it. A lot of that came from my girlfriend at the time. She was really into Wicca, and before I knew it, she had introduced me to a Ouija board. Oh no. At first it felt harmless, just curiosity, just kids messing around. But it didn't stay that way. Of course it didn't. We started using the board every single day. And after about a month, something strange happened. Every time we asked the same question, who are we speaking with? The answer never changed. Oh no. The planchette would slide across the board and spell out the word him. At first we laughed it off. We weren't scared yet, but over time, him started getting aggressive. The board would curse at us, tell us to fuck off. The energy in the room felt heavier every time we played. Stop. Stop. One day it got under my skin. I got angry, and in the middle of a session, I flipped the board off of the table and stormed away. After that, I stopped playing for a while, but whatever we'd contacted didn't stop. A few weeks later, I was working a night shift at Walmart stocking shelves. The store was quiet, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and distant footsteps. Then I heard it. A whisper. My name. Oh no. I froze. I told myself I imagined it until it happened again. Louder this time. I checked the next aisle, expecting to catch someone messing with me, but it was empty. When I heard my name a third time, loud enough to echo down the aisle, I snapped. I yelled, "Hello? Who the fuck is calling my name?" Nothing or no one answered. At work? About 40 seconds later, a coworker approached me. She looked pale, shaken. She asked if I had just heard my name being called 3 times. What? When I said yes, she swallowed hard and told me, completely seriously, that she was a medium and that hearing your name called 3 times was a sign someone in your family was about to die. I tried to laugh it off. I was into paranormal stuff, but I was still skeptical. I changed the subject and started talking about my future, plans, goals, and where I wanted my life to go. She interrupted me mid-sentence. She stared at me and said, "Every time you talk about your future, I hear something snickering. Something negative. It's attached to you and trying to ruin your plans." She had no idea about the Ouija board. The blood drained from my face. That night, I went home and fell into bed, exhausted. Hours later, I woke up to the sound of the house phone ringing. I heard my mom in the hallway saying, "Oh no, that's terrible. I'm so sorry. Who died? Who died?" Before she even hung up, I was downstairs asking what had happened. Someone in our family had just died. I barely knew them, but the timing had shattered me. Instead of scaring me away, though, It ended up pulling me deeper. Oh, what? A few days later, I invited my girlfriend and my best friend over. My parents weren't home. We went into the basement and brought out the Ouija board. Okay, what are we doing? This would be the last time I touched one for years. We'd been playing for about 20 minutes when something strange happened. All three of us smelled it at the same time. Breakfast sausage, strong, greasy, and freshly cooked. It made no sense. No one was home. No food had been made. We asked the board if that smell was him, and the answer was yes. Later, my parents came home and made dinner. We ate, then went right back downstairs. This time we were reckless. We demanded proof, asked it to touch us. Then I did something I regret to this day. I asked the board if it could possess my girlfriend. Planchette snapped to yes, faster than I'd ever seen it move. Then it began counting down. 3, 2, 1. The light bulb above us started buzzing, flickering, and then it went out. Complete darkness. I screamed and bolted upstairs. As I reached the living room, I saw the sky flash pure white through the window. The transformer across the street had blown. What? My friend was still downstairs, swearing, after slamming into a wall trying to escape. Where is your girlfriend? In the chaos, I forgot about my girlfriend. Are you? 20 seconds later, she walked up the stairs calmly. Blank expression, no fear at all. No. As she passed me, she muttered something quiet and in a voice several octaves deeper than her own. I asked her what she said. She looked at me confused and said, "What?" She did the same thing to my friend. I told her to go home. She lived just around the block. She walked out like nothing had happened. My friend and I slept with the light on for a month. I actually ran away from home that night because I was so terrified.
This story is a cautionary tale. Imagine doing voodoo on the girl your man is messing with, and it all comes back to destroy him. I am back with another spooky story. We're gonna call the girl who submitted the story Alina. So in 2021, Alina was casually seeing a guy. Like I name every guy in my stories, we're gonna call him Marcus. Alina was seeing Marcus, and at first it was nothing serious, but feelings started getting involved. Now this was getting kind of confusing for Alina because yes, they were friends. However, he spent almost every night with her, posted her food, drove her car around, all of that. So in Alina's mind, they're basically together. Then one day, another girl messaged her. The girl told her straight up, "That's my man. You're messing with my man." Now, Alina said the conversation was weird to her because she was asking the girl questions. He was basically telling Alina how much she loves that man and that Alina needs to see herself out the door. Now, Alina said she was so embarrassed and angry that she decided to cut Marcus off completely. Said she blocked him, she didn't fight over him, she just let it go. About 3 weeks later, Marcus started calling her from a different number, asking her had she done something to him. Alina thought he was drunk, so she would just ignore him. He was telling her that he kept dreaming of an old woman standing beside his bed. Every dream ended the same way. The woman would point at him and say, "Wrong target." After that, things in his life started collapsing really fast. He lost his job after showing up late because he couldn't sleep. His apartment flooded from a busted pipe above him. His car battery kept dying in random places, and his health started acting weird. He kept calling Alina to tell her about all these problems. The final straw was when he developed heart problems, even though doctors really couldn't find anything wrong with him. At this point, Alina's thinking maybe he's spiraling. Then Alina had a dream where she saw her late grandmother. And in her dream, her late grandmother told her, apparently Marcus's other chick had gone to someone to tie Marcus to her permanently and to destroy Alina spiritually so she would leave him alone. The woman doing the work allegedly asked for pictures and personal items from Alina, but the grandmother is saying the spiritual worker stopped doing the ritual midway and refused to continue. She told the girl that Alina is covered. Whatever you send probably won't touch her, it'll be returned somewhere else. That girl has some strong spirits and is divinely protected. Homegirl did not listen. She really wanted Marcus for herself and Alina gone. So she demanded that the woman finish the work anyway. And after that, it seems like everything supposedly transferred onto Marcus instead. So all of those inconveniences were actually met for Alina, including the health issue. And her grandmother told her in the dream that if Marcus keeps going down this route, then he will Alina says she tried to warn Marcus, however, Marcus really doesn't believe in that type of stuff. And she said those who does not hear will feel, because Marcus is already looking like he's wasting away. Alina says she moved on from that situation, but want y'all to know, magic is nothing to play with, and be careful who you go after, because you never know who is a part of their lineage. Before you mess with someone spiritually, just make sure they're not protected first. From your favorite Haitian homegirl.
I saw 3 women standing in the middle of the road at night when I was making a road trip through the Midwest. This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about what I saw that night that I still just can't explain. I had been driving for hours when my headlights suddenly caught someone standing directly in my lane. A woman, barefoot with long dark hair and a pale dress hanging almost to her ankles, and she wasn't waving for help. She wasn't trying to move, she was just standing there, and I slammed on the brakes and everything on my passenger seat flew onto the floor. The car stopped maybe 20 feet from where she had been. I looked up and nobody was there. I stared through the windshield trying to figure out where she could have gone, and there were cornfields on both sides of the highway, no houses or cars. I checked my side mirrors, but nothing. For a second, I genuinely wondered if I had hit her. So I looked into the rearview mirror and there were 3 women standing behind my car. I stopped breathing. They looked almost identical with the same long dark hair, the pale dresses, and bare feet. They were standing shoulder to shoulder in the middle of the road, and all 3 of them were smiling. Not normal smiles, their mouths were stretched too wide. Thick black liquid was running down between their lips, down their chins, and onto their necks. I threw the car into drive, and before I could move, the woman in the middle slowly raised her arm. She pointed directly at me, and the one beside her took a step toward the car. I hit the gas and I kept looking in the mirror as I drove away. They didn't chase me again. They didn't even move. They just stood there smiling until I couldn't see them anymore. I told myself not to look back. I turned the music up and I kept driving. And then something wet landed on the back seat. I heard it, a single drop, but then another. I slowly looked into the rearview mirror, and black liquid was running down the inside of my back windshield. I almost drove off the road. I didn't stop. I didn't even turn around to see where it was coming from. I drove until I found a truck stop with bright lights and other people outside. I parked right beside the entrance and ran inside. I stayed there until the sun came up, and when I finally went back to my car, the back window was completely clean. There wasn't any black liquid or stains, nothing. I never saw those women again, and I just know there was 1 woman in front of my car when I stopped, and 3 standing behind it afterward. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
I literally don't remember who have shared this story with me, but if you're the one, then please do let me know in the comment section so that I can tag you. And I might have also forgotten certain details of the story. However, I do remember the ones that's gonna make you guys get scared. So let's get started with today's bedtime story. Imagine there's a building, and that building is owned by one family who also lives in that building, and there are 3 or 4 more floors which have been rented by other people or other families, one of which is related to the ones who have shared the story with me. Imagine it to be some kind of a joint family, so there are a couple of cousins that live together. The owner of that building, the family of the building, was very rich, obviously, and they had like this big business which is related to some transportation of trucks, etc. But suddenly the head of the family, who was the husband of the family, got like really sick, and he just passed away just like that. This event literally turned their lives upside down, because the only member of the family who was earning is no more now. Now the family business that they owned also went under a very huge financial loss, and therefore the entire family suffered a lot. Now one day there's one person who went to the terrace of that building randomly, and what he saw was really scary. He saw that widow who lost her husband half burnt and dead on the terrace. Nobody knows how this woman ended up on top of the terrace, half burned dead. Now you can imagine the kind of vibes that the entire building would have. Now the floor where this owner's family used to live in is obviously locked now, and nobody lives there anymore. Now coming back to the cousins of the person who have shared this story with me. So they were on the playground in the same compound, and they were playing badminton, and it was evening time. Now one of the cousins, when he was about to smash, he froze. His head was up. He just froze. Said, "I'll just count till 3 and we need to run. So cousin 1 counted 1, 2, 3 and they ran towards their house, which was of course in the same building. When they reached their house, the cousin narrated what he saw and it literally gave me chills. So when he was about to smash, he saw that woman who was found dead standing on the railings of the terrace with her hairs open, half burnt body, looking straight into his eyes. Parents of the house, try to console them and try to shrug it off, saying that it's fine, you're just hallucinating everything. I mean, what else can they do, right? By the way, they were also trying to, already planning to leave the building like all the other families in that building. Now, one evening, one of the parents of the cousin was coming back from office. He was walking up towards his floor because there's no lift in the building. He suddenly hears a woman crying, and the cry was like filled with a lot of sorrow and pain and somewhat like crying out for help. So he sees a woman who is sitting down in one of the corner of the corridor, and she's weeping and crying, and he starts walking towards her thinking she might need some help. That's when he realizes that nobody actually lives in that floor, because that floor was owned by the owners of the building who is no more. He steps back and just rushes towards his house upstairs. Then the next day, they leave that building forever. So, good night.
Imagine you catch your dad talking to himself, and then later you find out that your dad has had an imaginary friend ever since he was little. Now I'm happy that I didn't have a dad. So this guy says that ever since he was little, he would notice that his dad would always be talking by himself. With time, it became something normal, like an everyday thing. The dad would be working on his car and he would be talking to himself. But he started to notice that he wasn't just talking to himself. It sounded like an actual conversation, almost like if the dad was listening to something and he would respond to it. His mom also hated that she didn't like that her husband would be talking to himself, that it was really weird. Unfortunately, when the guy who's telling us the story was 12 years old, his father did end up passing away. He explains that after the funeral, after everything, his mom was obviously really sad, and there was a day where he had to be home alone. He was also really sad, so when he was home alone, he decided to talk out loud to his dad. He started to tell him, I miss you so much, you shouldn't be dead right now, why did you have to leave us, I love you so much, I wish you were here. He explains that after saying all of this, out of nowhere, he just had that really weird sensation that he wasn't alone at home. He looks down the hallway of the house and he says that he sees a shadow coming out of his parents' bedroom. For a little bit, he started to think that maybe that was his dad, like maybe his dad was back just to accompany him. One day he was in his bedroom and he started to do the thing again. He would just start talking to his dad like, Dad, I miss you, I wish you were here, I'm so sad. To be honest, he says that sometimes he would say that with a lot of like energy, a lot of wanting for his dad to be there, because at that point he thought that shadow was his dad, so he wanted to say those things so that the shadow would appear and he could see his dad. When he would see the shadow, at first he thought, oh, I'm not by myself, I'm not alone, and my dad is here. However, there was almost like a switch. So out of nowhere, he went from like longing to see the shadow to now being terrified, and he doesn't understand why. So there was a night where he was in the shower. Please, I'm not showering tonight after this. What do you mean? There was a night where he's in the shower. He's putting shampoo on his head, his eyes are closed, and that is when he started to feel like he was being watched. And that's not all of it, because he says that as the water was coming down like over his head, he was starting to hear like the drops of the water near his ear. He said that those drops of water almost started to sound like whispers, and he was so scared he didn't want to open his eyes. But in one of those moments where he started to hear a whisper, he heard a very specific phrase being whispered into his ear, and this thing tells him, you're not him. That is where the story ends. But it's like, what if it was his dad's imaginary friend basically coming to tell him, I know you're not your dad, like your dad is gone, but like what the fuck are you still doing here? Or what do you guys think?